Hi, this is College of Circles. I'm Jeff, and today I will be reviewing the Darrington Brigade box set from WizKids and Critical Role. Before we get started, I would like to ask you to subscribe to this channel. As I reach certain subscriber milestones, I will be doing giveaways of various WizKids miniatures, starting with that first milestone of 100 subscribers. Now, when I play Dungeons & Dragons, I make extensive use of my miniatures. My reviews are based on how well these figures enhance gameplay at my table, how often they are likely to be used, and how much they add to the game when I use them. I use a 10-point scale, with 0 to 2 points in each of 5 categories. Those categories are details in the sculpt, quality of the paint application, how well the pose of the figure helps tell its story, how versatile the figure is, and how much the figure inspires me to want to create story and gameplay with it. Most figures will get a 1 in each category, with exceptional traits receiving a 2 and traits that miss the mark getting a 0. At my table, I generally treat the figures literally. What the player sees in the figure is what the character sees in the game. Of course, these are all my subjective opinions and yours may differ. With all that said, here's the figures. Now, I have been eagerly awaiting this set, and its delay in getting to me ultimately resulted in me dropping Miniature Market as my preferred store and going with Game Nerds or Atomic Empire. After a month delay, I finally have the set, and now, here it is. The Darrington Brigade consists of 9 figures and has an MSRP of $69.99. Here's the review. We start with Sir Tyrion Darrington. Unfortunately, this is one of the most vanilla figures from Critical Role. Sir Tyrion has some nice details in his armor, but there are some pockmarks in this sculpt and some of the paint is sloppy. The pose is fitting for a pompous jerk, which does inform me of how I would build a personality for this NPC. I'm not sure what his personality is like in Critical Role, but for my games, he would fill a specific niche of maybe an arrogant prince who would probably talk down to my players. Not one I would use very often, but would have an occasional role in my games. We move on to Dodie, who appears to be some sort of Warforged scribe. The sculpt is simple, but has nice detail where it needs it, and the paint is the same way. If you're looking for a Warforged wizard, this is probably the figure for you. I already know where he is going to end up in my world. Earmuffs, if any of my players are watching this. I'm going to make him a Celestial and be the chief record keeper on Mount Celestia. Our third figure is Farrowin Breeze, and this one has so much missed potential. The design of this figure in her sculpt, color scheme, and pose could make this a near perfect figure. However, the execution is poor throughout. She has an unnatural lean to one side, and there is a large amount of base coat showing everywhere on the figure. And also, she has no mouth, which is a huge pet peeve of mine. Still, I have a use for her as she will pair nicely with figures from Pathfinder's Gods of Lost Omen set. That review is coming next week. And I'm going to make her home on Mount Celestia with Dodie. In my review of the Journeys to the Radiant Citadel monsters, I mentioned that one of my players had a juvenile owlbear companion, and that set provided me with the perfect figure. Now, we have the perfect figure for an owlbear hunter. The dark owl is wearing a hooded cape that could be made from a giant owl, or in my case, the pelt of an owlbear. He has a great pose as he appears ready to leap out of a bush, ready to swing his sword. The only issue I have is again with sloppy paint. He has no mouth, and there are several areas of missing paint in his coat. From repeated issues with paint to one of the best paint jobs I've ever seen, here we have Damian Vadoma. The sculpt and pose are simple but effective, and this is a figure that is extremely versatile, with the possibility of her being a fighter, a rogue, or a ranger. Where this figure really stands out is in the detail of her paint. She has tattoos all over her face, neck, and hands, with the rose on the back of her hand being exceptional. A great figure and shows why I believe I'm justified in expecting better in other figures. Alright, we enter the backstretch with Buddy, the only large figure in the set, and one that is really eye-catching in the box. The sculpt is so much fun, especially in the details of his jaw. There is a little of the base coat showing, but here it is done correctly to add depth to his muscles. There are a couple spots of overpainting, like on his fingertips and in his armor near the leather straps. Another figure that doesn't have too many useful applications, but will be a perfect NPC when the party needs some levity in the campaign. With figure 7, we have a big swing in contact with the ball, but the umpire can't tell which side of the foul pole it passed. On the home run side, this is a really fun figure that could be a memorable NPC. I'll probably pair her with Buddy, and I have some ideas for what I'll do with them. She displays a really outgoing and vibrant personality, which is a credit to WizKids for bringing that to life in the figure. On the other hand, that big personality makes her somewhat limited. I would be wary about a player wanting to build a character around this concept, as it feels like a joke that would get old fast. Also, although most of the details in the paint are present, there is too much base coat showing through for my tastes. Our 8th figure is Macaroni Samsonite, and this one is clearly a foul ball to this ump. This figure feels out of place, and where the humor of Buddy works for me, this one just falls flat. The skull cap has little definition, and the paint job is uninspired throughout. Now, the character was played by Travis Willingham, who said Macaroni looked like one of the Lost Boys from Peter Pan. I understand what they were going for here, but it just gets lost in translation from artwork to miniature. It reads less Peter Pan and more child wearing an Indian costume for Halloween. We finish off with Lawrence Darrington and another disappointment. I do like his attire, but his pose is too much like Sartarian, and the paint job is pretty bad, especially in the head. Now, I do love my NPCs, and this is one, can be another generic nobleman, but overall, this is an uninspired figure. WizKids produces 3 main lines of pre-painted miniatures for TTRPGs. The Dungeons & Dragons Icons of the Realms line, Pathfinder Battles, and Critical Role. Pathfinder tends to be the most adult-oriented, which I will address in a review next week, and Critical Role is easily the most cartoonish and youth-oriented. Even though I don't watch Critical Role or play Pathfinder, I have always sought out these figures to offer a contrast to the standard high fantasy and Eurocentric monsters of D&D. With the Darrington Brigade, we see a lot of the youth-oriented cartoon design. In some cases, it works really well, like with Buddy and Damian Badoma, but in other cases, well, they do have their audience. With an average cost of $778, the figures here are priced right between premium figures and booster brick figures. And there's enough quality here for me to give it a slight recommendation, especially if you can find it under MSRP. Alright, well that was the Darrington Brigade, a decent box set that was made disappointing mainly due to my high expectations. I have several reviews coming out this week and more to come next week. And what did you think of this review? Leave your comments below. As always, I'm Jeff. Thank you for watching College of Circles. See you in the next video.